I see a lot of people joining there, Julie, so I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes before I get started.
Okay, no worries. I'll hang tight.
All right.
Got my coffee close.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like we have the majority joined there, so we'll get started here. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to welcome you today to this webinar, Reducing Risk with the Use of Technology, hosted by the Ontario Senior Nutrition and Advocacy Committee, OSNAC. My name is Denise Hackett, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this event. So Julie, can I have the next slide, please? Before we dive in, let's cover some housekeeping rules for this session. To ensure a smooth experience, we have arranged for the audience cameras and microphones to be turned off during this session. The chat feature is also disabled, but don't worry, we have a 30-minute question and answer session planned for you at the end. During the question and answer, feel free to use the Teams Q&A feature to pose your question. If you spot a question you love, feel free to hit like button to give it a little boost in priority. You're welcome to enter questions during the presentation. However, questions will be addressed when the presentation is finished. Given our large audience, we might not be able to address every question, but we will do our best. We may group questions by theme to cover as much as possible. We will attempt to send out a summary document after, time permitting, of course. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available on the OSNAC website in the coming days. Next slide, please. A huge thank you to our partners and presenters. We truly appreciate their support, and without them, none of this would be possible. Next slide. I would just like to begin. I wanted to share some information about OSNAC. OSNAC was established in 2020 and previously known as the Dietitians of Canada Long-Term Care Action Group. OSNAC is run by volunteers, and we have an amazing group of dedicated registered dietitians and nutrition managers and others working at the corporate and frontline levels of the senior sector. Our purpose is to advocate, educate, and empower to strive for updated regulations to meet the changing needs of our seniors, to enhance person-centered care and quality of life, and to advocate for flexibility at the home level. Next slide. Now, without further ado, let's introduce our fantastic speaker who will be sharing her experience. Today we have Julie Cavalieri. Julie is a registered dietitian with 25 years in the healthcare industry. She won the Marie Taylor Award for Excellence in Long-Term Care Seniors Nutrition in 2021. She currently works directly with food service distributors, frontline operators, contract management companies, and other partners along the food service supply chain to help optimize senior living food service operations with MealSuite. And now I will pass it over to Julie to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, for that introduction. And I know I have to save questions for the end. So I will power through some of these items on the agenda a little quicker than others, just to make sure that I save enough time for questions at the end. So you'll see there's quite a few risks that I'm going to be talking to you about today. And really, actually, you know what, I'm just going to shut my video off because it's distracting me. I am going to be talking to you about the comprehensive role that food service technology has in mitigating risks. So we're going to talk about compliance and food safety, nutrition risk, allergens, and in between all that, talking about some operational efficiency. So I'm not going to take questions in between because you're all muted, but there are some Slido questions in between to get some interaction with you. So if you have your phone nearby, you'll be able to interact with me using those the Slido link it'll be a QR code, and then we can interact that way. There'll be 3 questions. So if you have your phone nearby, that might help. Some of the important things that I want to talk to you about in terms of mitigating risks is that there's lots of different technologies out there. Lots of different food distributors have it, independents, and I'm going by the technology that I have used in the past, that I know of, and that I'm currently really embedded in, which is what we call an integrated technology. It's like end to end, from farm to table sort of thing. It runs the whole continuum, from when you need to order food to when it ends up on the plate. So an integrated technology is sort of the lens that I come from, versus, there's some technologies that might just do food safety, or some technologies that might just do menus and recipes. I'm coming at from the lens that a technology that is end to end. And really, the future is in food service technology. There's so much happening in development with AI, and you've heard about AI, artificial intelligence, and you may have used ChatGPT in your day-to-day, but AI and that sort of thing is starting to really show itself in the use of food service technology, not only in procurement and figuring out what people's buying patterns are, and looking at what residents choose, and predictive forecasting. There's all kinds of really neat stuff, RD signatures on menus, because all the information is there, and there's algorithms that would say, hey, this would meet requirements or not. So there's really some really good things happening in food service technology, but you have to have some form of technology to be able to use these things to mitigate risks and help create operational efficiencies. But the other thing is that there are lots of challenges in healthcare food service. I've worked in healthcare food service my whole adult career, right from the dietary aid, food service supervisor, nutrition manager, you name it, dietitian. I've been there, done that. And the last 4 years, I would say, it's just brought on a whole new level of challenges in healthcare food service. So moving to my next slide, if it would go, there we go. Here's that Slido, the first question. And so what you can do is you can either scan the QR code or just go to slido.com and put in that number, and you can answer this question, and we can see it pop up in real time. What are some of the current challenges that you're facing in food services today? So again, you can scan with your QR, you can go to slido.com, put in that number, and hopefully we can start seeing it pop up onto the screen as soon as you get there. In the meantime, while you're typing, I can see there's lots of participants typing right now. The last 4 years have brought on a whole bunch of challenges, and I'm starting to see them pop up on the screen. I was going to say product availability, like supply chain, has been a big one. Many of you have been saying food costs. That's why food costs is showing up really big on the screen. Costs and food costs. So the more of you that say the same thing, the bigger the word is. Budget, food costs, and cost seems to be the most. Meeting cultural needs, yeah. Staffing shortage, yeah. That's been a long-standing thing. It got really bad, obviously during COVID, but it never really got to a place of stability after COVID. Not enough hours. So forget staffing shortages. We don't have enough hours to do the work that we need to do. Diversity, yeah, EDI is so important, and it's the same as this meeting of the cultural needs as well. Those two could be bucketed together. So I think that's it. I don't think there's anyone else typing away. Staffing shortages comes up pretty big. Compliance, there it is. Yeah, so we have compliance, and depending on where you're joining us from, I have some people here, most of the people here from Ontario, but there's lots, I see lots of names from other places, and compliance is not just an Ontario regulation thing. Many different provinces have different authorities, health authorities, they have to meet regulations. And if you're joining from the US, welcome. And we know that there's state surveys, which also come into play with compliance. Okay, so I think we've hit all the big ones. Oh, here's one, working with the nursing team. So that's interesting because when I go on site, in some places, the silos are really, really connected in working with nursing teams. And in others, there's very much, a siloed approach. So yeah, that's a good one to whoever put that one there. Younger clients, absolutely. Long-term care doesn't mean seniors. And so how do we meet their needs too? So in saying all this, in terms of meeting the challenges in healthcare, the food service technology of today is aimed at meeting these challenges. When we meet with a customer, a potential customer, just get feedback, we do surveys all the time, even people with, that have no food service technology. It's like, what could make your job easier? What are you struggling with? How can we solve your problems? What is it that could make things more efficient? And so the food service technology is really designed to solve these problems. And in doing so, it mitigates the risk. So here's another question. Again, get your phone out. There'll be another Slido. What does this number represent? So 55. What does this number represent? And it's not my age. Oh, it's coming. Not yet, but it's not my age. What does 55? Haha. Retirement. I wish freedom 55. I don't know if that exists anymore, but yeah, okay. What does 55 represent? Okay, I have lots of people typing. Okay, people on therapeutic diets. How many are over budget? Shopper's discount. Male to female ratio. Customer satisfaction. These are all great. I see people are still typing, so I'll give it another minute. In this scenario, even if there's more than one, if there's the same answer, it won't make it bigger. So average age of the resident in long-term care. Okay, interesting. And someone else typing, give it a second. Percent of residents on, I guess, nutrition supplement ons. I suppose that's what that means. Percentage of residents malnourished in long-term care. Percentage of staff. Turnover. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so I think, average age, we saw that again. So I think I'll tell you the answer. And it's actually, nobody said it. But that's okay, as this is what we're here to learn. It's the percentage of senior living food service operations who currently manage their menus on some kind of manual or paper format. They're not utilizing any web-based platforms at all. So using Excel or Word, pen and paper, a napkin, a whiteboard, whatever. And, when we talk about risks, we'll see what the implications of this is throughout the presentation. But last year, Meal Suite did a survey with, it was over 1,000 senior living operators. And we asked them what their biggest pain points were right now. So this is last year. And we asked how hard was it to stay in budget? And then we asked, what do you do for menu planning? And 55% of those that we talked to said they still build an Excel document. They build their own recipes on paper, or they go to their distributor or GPO and they grab their pricing, and then they calculate their own costs and for the recipes, and then they do their own costing and they build their own grocery lists, and then they have to do their own, nutrient analysis. And it's a 6-month window because there's changes along the way, and then they have to change their menus again. So, excuse me. So that 55% is those manual workaround. 55% of facilities have manual workarounds when there's technology options to mitigate those operational processes. Okay, so the first safety risk I'm going to talk about is HACCP. And so food safety is, what we, nutrition management 101. There's a lot of different critical steps here. But one of the things that food service technology does do is incorporate lots of food safety workflows into different steps. One of the things that's really popular right now is regularly recording. We do it manually, mostly on paper, in a manual process. And in some sites that I go to, there's they're manually putting it in. They always look the same, and if they're not, some of them don't have an action column. Like, okay, well, I put down that the fridge temperature was 7 degrees Celsius or 8. And it should have been 4 or less. And okay, so what did you do about it? Well, nothing. Nothing was done, or it's blank, or there's no range. Like, what should it be? I'm just writing numbers. I don't know what it should be. Okay, well, the food service technology solution, well, the range is embedded, because you're programmed what you want the range to be. It automatically generates the digital log, and it creates alerts. If you're not in the safe zone, or whatever zone you want to call it, it immediately sends alerts. And so, via triage system, it might start with the cook, or it might start with the food service, whatever way. And so emails, texts go out, and it escalates. So, the cook doesn't answer, it goes to the next person. If they don't answer, it goes to the next person, right up until, the administrator, executive director, or whoever, to say, hey, we have a problem here, and nobody's addressing it, and nobody's putting it in action, and we don't know what's happening. And we've had lots of customers that said, they've saved thousands of dollars because they were alerted that something was going wrong. And even if it happens at night, the alerts will go out. And it's keeping the log. So when public health comes in, or compliance, anybody comes in, you can show the logs and the actions, because if it's out of range, like, well, what did we do? Well, we got the condenser you looked at, or we had maintenance, replace a part, or, whatever it is. And you can show your mitigating strategy, and that the food wasn't outside of the safe zone for long enough to cause a hazard. And the same is with integrated Bluetooth thermometers for the food. So manual, it's in most places where, you stick the probe, you write you write the temperature. Again, in some places you see, for some things, the same temperature all the way down. Well, okay, sometimes you see it done for the next meal that hasn't even happened yet. And sometimes, it's out of range and they didn't do anything about it. But if you're using the electronic system, it demands the workflow to do it. You can't do it in advance. If it's outside of the safe or the zone that you created, the temperature zone, it will demand you put an action in there, and then the various alerts and that kind of thing. So from a food safety point of view, there's lots of different technologies that do this type of thing with recording. Some of the more advanced food service technologies will also provide recipes that have the critical control points listed. And there's a lot of recipes that you can get from digital systems that have those critical control points. Those are pretty well embedded. When you create your own recipes, not so much, because when you're, getting recipes and creating them yourself, you're getting them from the internet or from old menus or from other places. And when you're copying, pasting it onto the Word document, you may not be doing the critical control points or analyzing those. But when you get it from a technology system, though, the recipes within the system have those critical control points in there. And again, advanced systems would also have digital checklists. You can create food safety checklists, delivery speed. Is the food waiting out for too long? If they're taking the temperature, how long before it's actually served? There's different quality scores, or how many temperatures were actually logged versus how many should have been logged, and it gives you sort of the score. how many alerts were sent out, and you can do all kinds of dashboards with it. So, it can get pretty fancy with all the various things you can do with it and program if you have, program it yourself. So the next risk area that I want to talk about is nutrition risk. So as a dietitian, this is always top of mind for me, and as nutrition managers as well. I mean, working hand in glove with your dietitian on some of these things is really important, and having technology to help facilitate some of this also helps bring time out of the office and back to the front line and supervision and training where it needs to be, because the system will allow you to manage allergies. I know as a dietitian, taking hours and hours of time looking through ingredient listings and packages when they came in and all kinds of stuff, looking for allergies. I can say I for sure wasn't looking at all these allergens, to make sure, we had a good grasp of the allergies. And was I sure that every single item had, some of them didn't always declare allergies, and when they're prepared foods, it was a little easier, but sometimes it was very vague, like seasonings. So it's like, okay, well, what seasonings? What are there sulfites in the seasonings and that kind of thing? So the software really tracks all of the food allergies in priority groups, and they come from databases, the nutrient databases in the US and Canada. So you get all of the information from thousands and thousands of food items, not just prepared food items where the label is clear, but also for ingredients. So it pulls from all those nutrient databases. And with some of the more sophisticated platforms, you have the ability to create your own allergy group to assign to assign food items to. And when a person or resident is assigned to that food allergen group, they will not be served that recipe or any food in that allergy group. So if someone is allergic to eggs, or you create, another allergen group, let's just say mushroom, and assign all those recipes and ingredients to the group, it will remove that item from their personal menu. It will not show up anywhere. The ones listed here, it's automatic. You don't need to assign anything. The ones listed here, it's already picks up all the information from all the nutrient databases. And if there is a resident that has an allergy to one of these things, those food items will not show up on their menu. The workload of a resident who has a true allergy is a lot, and this saves a tremendous amount of time, because you have to do it for each cycle, for each substitution or menu change, for each item that was supposed to be on the menu that didn't come in. It's very much a make work project, but necessary and needs to happen. And the other nutritional risk and consideration is not only around the allergens, because that's a kind of a big deal, but the personalized experience of the resident, which we're trying to get to resident-centered care or person-centered care. So, there's also dislikes and that kind of thing. We want residents to eat what they like or what they were used to. I saw, cultural considerations on the Slido, and we were talking about, what's a problem in your food service area, and really being able to have a system that you're able to personalize those things. You can create a nutrient analysis for your regular menus, your special menus, your personal resident menus. And the nutrient analysis is quite, for lack of a better word, cool. It's macronutrients, minerals, vitamins you could do for a day, for a meal, for a cycle, for a week. You can do individual meal items, individual ingredients. You can pull up labels. You can print and nutrition labels. You can set your own parameters. I mean, the possibilities are endless with nutrient analysis. And that's another one of those things as an RD before food service technology, having to get out all the nutrient books and create charts just to make sure, and we wouldn't do it for every single item. You to kind of take averages and that kind of thing to make sure your menu was within the proper DRIs and guidelines. And now there's, you can see from the picture, there's like these dashboards, and you can see by color, you know, how much total fat and carbohydrate and protein. And then in the next, I believe it's the next slide. Yeah, in the next slide, you can see where it shows you that it's too high or too low. If green means it's great, red means you got to do something about this. It's too, you know, you got to make it a little more that day or that meal or that week or what have you. And the various reports are endless. It puts the ideal values in if you want to see the ideal values, and then the totals and everything in between. So it really made our lives so much easier to have a nutrient analysis that you can customize and have the reports. And when I go into the compliance section, I mean, this also helps for compliance too. The other piece on nutrition risk is that it connects to your EMR, electronic medical record, electronic health record, EHR, however you want to say about that. But there's so much integration that the food service software does with other types of software. One of them is electronic health records. And so it just keeps all the residents' records up to date in a digital location. It brings over the diets, allergies, ADT information, and it's all in real time. So if it happens on the weekend, if it happens in the, 8 o'clock at night, a resident comes in from the hospital, or there's been a diet change or a change in status, when it's entered into the electronic health record, it also happens in the integrated food service software. It also reduces the risks of, duplication errors or mix-ups. And how many times a year do you have to do audits on making sure everything matches, your dining reports, match your Cardex, match your, your lists, your beverage lists or breakfast lists, or your EHR or your diet, your point click care or whatever other EHR system you have, their lists. With the Connect, there's none of that, no more of that type of auditing that needs to happen because it's all done seamlessly through the software. Okay, the other risk that we're going to talk about is around resident satisfaction. Just do a time check. Okay, resident satisfaction. And that came up when you were talking about some of the things you're struggling with, food services today. What are the residents saying about the menu? And this is just, we're all here to serve residents. That's the ultimate goal. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. And so when they're not getting what they need or want, it could lower satisfaction scores. Now, there's been studies that show that resident dining and menu satisfaction scores correlate to their overall happiness on where they are living. So if they're happy with the dining and the menus, their score for their experience at a care community or retirement home or what have you is actually higher. So it really correlates to that. So making sure our residents are happy by curating menus, like there's this regular seasonal menus, we all know that. There's the special event menus. There's this, cyclical menus. There's a la carte menus. So a lot of people are going to the restaurant style menus. There's now one choice, lots of provinces and now even Ontario moving to one choice. There's still two choice. There's a hybrid, like, one choice of one thing and multiple choices of other things. There's, trace service. There's all sorts of menus that need to be curated, and to have to do that manually takes hours and hours of time. That could be training staff, supervising dining rooms, assisting, and being part of your overall quality management program instead of being at a computer on Word and Excel, creating all these menus versus having them available where you can sort of drag and drop and have all the background information work for you, and ultimately for the resident, because it would be easier for that resident to get that individualized item on a personal menu that ends up on the production sheet that the cook can then pull and prep, that is labeled properly, that gets to the servery and then heated and provided accordingly. So this is a direct quote from that survey that I mentioned that we did last year. Our menu has been the same for over a year now due to not having time to adjust the menu or create a new one. And that's really sad for residents if they have to have the same thing. Every 3 weeks on Monday, they're always going to have that shepherd's pie. Every 3 weeks on the Thursday, they're always going to have, that same thing. So, it's really sad if, with the availability of being able to have a lot of variety and having access to thousands and thousands of recipes, that we don't have time to do menus because it just takes so long. And it's not just the menus and finding the recipes, it's the costing, it's the order guides, it's creating the production sheets, it's now spreading them, for the therapeutics, it's creating the personalized menus for those that can't have the regular or fall outside of the therapeutics. So, it does take a lot of time to do these menus. And so, you save a whole bunch of time. And ultimately, with residents' feedback, it's easy to make those changes. Having to do it manually and having to record it and have a record of it it takes a really long time. The other piece on resident satisfaction, which is really cool, is there's availability through the resident's own phone or tablet or computer or what have you, or the family's own devices to order. So residents can order for themselves using the tablet, and or the family has, a portal where they can go in and they see only their own information, dietary requirements, their own menu. They're not going to just see the regular menu. Oh, but I can't have that because, I'm on this special renal diet thing or personalized menu, or I have an allergy. That's not what shows up. Their own personal, individualized menu comes up. Also on the portals, like diet history comes up, like what they actually chose at the point of service, what they received. So there's a history of that. And it goes straight from the tablet or the phone or what have you, straight to either the kitchen or the service area, or some of you might have other areas, like some places have like their own little bistros or cafeteria type areas or what have you, and it'll go to whatever area you program it to be. And it's all the nutritionals and everything's all personalized and tailored to that individual. And this really provides a lot of autonomy to the resident and to their families to view a menu, to select it in advance, as far as advanced that they need. I think, well, not as far, not yet, but I think up to 7 days in advance, or just right on time, or what have you. So that really improves the residents' satisfaction by giving them some independence and autonomy, or to their families. Okay, the next piece is around the dining and choking risks. And we did talk a little, so some of this, thread I had, spoken about, so I'll go through this and not as much detail because it's a little bit redundant, but I think I did want to kind of point out that the individualized care and the menu customization, all the stuff that happens for the individualization and meal customization for a particular resident at risk. When those menus are created, every ingredient is pre-coded, and that information doesn't just lie in an Excel spreadsheet or on a dining word report. Because they're coded, they actually go, for lack of a better word, to all the production and pull sheets and temp sheets, and whether it's paperless or paper-based reports, all that information goes somewhere. So you get the nutrient analysis, you get the costing for that menu, you get a production sheet with those individualizations. You can get all those individual items on all the front-facing reports, whether it be on a tablet, a screen, or on paper. And so it's only and so when it ends up in the servery area or in a dining room, only the things that resident is able to have or experience shows up. It's not all that noise and information that's on some of these reports. It's just really small font. You can't, it's just got all the people at the table and all their information and all the likes and all the dislikes and all the red and all the highlights and all the stuff. That noise is completely gone when you track it by the resident's individualized need at the point of service. So whether it's a tray ticket, a snack label, the dining room report, it really only gives the information that you need for that resident. And if there's any risks associated, those risks are there without all the noise of everything else. Then that personalized service is better. They're not having to read a whole bunch of stuff or skip over it because information bombardment, and only gives you what the resident needs. And because of the connection to the electronic health record, if there has been a change, a downgrade or what have you, to a downgrade to a menu or individualized menu, it happens right away. You don't have to run around changing the books and highlighting and all that stuff. It will do it on its own. And the other thing is reports will soon be coming out with pictures on them too. So then from that point, it's like, oh, this person isn't the person I'm serving, especially for staff that are new or training, or sometimes you have students. So these things are all very important to minimize choking, ensure residents are getting the proper meal, and avoiding all that extra information that is not necessary at the point of service. I can't move on from dining and choking risks without talking about IDSI, because most food service technology mitigates choking risks by implementing IDSI standardizations into their recipes. They have color-coded tags and symbols, so it's easy to identify. And the diets can be spread using IDSI diets. And so it's just, a plug and play, especially if you haven't implemented it yet. Having to do that yourself is probably a big reason why you haven't implemented it yet, because it's a lot of work to do all that testing. But there's thousands of recipes that have been tested, that are in a database, that can be used, that are already using the proper IDSI framework, and tech and language and tags and what have you. So this is a really good advancement in food service technology that can help you with any IDSI implementation too. So let's move on to financial risk, because that came up very loud and strong in our word cloud. So the issue with today's economy, and we've heard lots of you say in the word cloud and in our surveys, that product availability and cost fluctuations are still a big problem. And if I can think back 5 years ago, we could build a menu and the cost might go up 7% over a 6-month period. But now, if you're looking at every category every day, we know that it can fluctuate so much that it's too late by the time we identify it to make those changes. So having that foundation in place with a technology that layers all that data, the data from the ingredients, the base recipes, the data flowing in, the machine learning, the ChatGPT, all will help make some of these decisions on substitutions if there's been shortages, when there's been a really big cost fluctuation, recommendations to make changes because of a recent cost or projected cost increase. So those procurement optimization features that link to your food distributor or their order guides that technology is there. It's there now, and it keeps your food costs in check, and it's live pricing. Where before, or if you don't have it, the pricing you get when you sort of, you're creating your menus like, oh, this is what this should cost. That changes day by day, week by week. And I know there's, the newsletters, you can see, oh, beef is increasing 12% and wheat is this and that kind of thing. But that means you have to physically go and make those, compute that in your head and make those changes versus having that procurement optimization that will reset those levels and give you recommendations on changes with what the costing would be. So that real-time costing and budgeting is really, really important. And also we talked about the production efficiency and the other areas around the individualizations, because all that information ends up on the production sheets, which then allows you to do your forecasting and demand planning better. And, nothing is worse in terms of doing overproduction, because you're doing manual production sheets. You have recipes that say you need 25, 50, 75, 100, when really you need 38. But because the recipe says, I need a pound and a half of beef, well, for 50, it's saying I need 2 pounds. Well, now you just wasted half a pound of ground meat because you're not going to be serving it. And that's just overproduction and waste. And when I go into sites and do evaluation and audits, there's some sites I calculated was one day, it was over $200 a day in just waste. It's $200 a day in waste. Calculate that by 365 days a year. That's $90,000. So when people say, I can't afford, this, or I can't afford that, well, how much are you actually wasting? How much food is going into the garbage? Or is your forecasting not right, that residents aren't really getting what they want, and it's like, well, next time it's on, we'll make sure we pad the numbers a little bit more. So having that demand planning and the forecasting that's more precise really does make a difference. And then the last point I have on here, and it's something that a lot of our retirement home clients do, but I am seeing it more and more in long-term care, is using food service technology to attract revenue by providing some kind of outside dining program. So whether it's a cafe and having self-serve kiosks there, for a coffee or a muffin, or whether it's putting together some sandwiches. Some places will do some leftovers and package it up so that staff can have an item labeled, because the label can come from the technology at a lesser cost, a couple bucks, and they can get their lunch or snack or dinner, or just because they're hungry, and it provides some income for the department to use to pay back some of the food service technology, or to mitigate some of that financial risk that's happening or padding the current menu so that you can do some nicer stuff, or buy some higher quality ingredients for some special event menus or whatever. It doesn't matter. And some places are definitely using it for a revenue generating option going forward. Oh, there's 15 minutes left. I'm going to be really quick here. A lot of the food service technologies do have like in-app training. Some of it is like in-app training, like, you're in a recipe and it's like, it says chop an onion. It's like, oh, how do I chop an onion? And you can click on it and the video pops up and it's all beautiful and that kind of thing. But it also is like, oh, I have a couple of new PSWs that are serving in the dining room, and here's this tablet. And the tablet will have in-app training. Oh, this is how you take an order, and you click the button and it shows them how to take the order, and it goes through some of the steps that way. So it also helps force the workflows and the dining and kitchen routines, because there's only one way to do something. You're not shouting over the dining room. You're actually using technology to force the flow of how to get orders in, how to get the proper meal, how to get that individualization to the resident. I need to spend a little bit of time on compliance risks, although we have been talking about it throughout. But the reporting mechanisms in food service technology really do save your butt. If you are using technology, all the menus that are curated all follow best and prevailing practices. There's lots of variety. There's cultural, you can pull from the cultural menu, you can create individualizations. There's information on substitutions, and your production sheets will tell the story to the compliance person or whoever's inspecting, whether it's a health authority or what have you, on what has happened in your kitchen and with your menu planning. The nutrient analysis. Some places want to make sure you're using, if like for Ontario, for example, that's giving money for raw food costs, are you actually using your food costs? Show me that. Show me your analysis. And so the reporting mechanisms really do help. Whether it's digital or paper or what have you, they're all available. And then these other items on the monitoring documentation compliance also. I think I spoke to these items throughout, which are ready and available when there's a compliance inspection or public health or anything else, and you can readily have the items available to you. The last piece is around environmental risk. We're all getting more and more environmentally conscious, some of us more than others. And we know when we have those recipe binders and production sheets and all that fun stuff, the things we post on the walls and therapeutics and oh my goodness. So the picture on the bottom right is a real life picture for one cycle. It is ridiculous. And, it hurts to what do we say, kill trees and all that stuff. And there's digitization for all of this. There's no need to be having any of that anymore. There's menu boards and there's tablets and there's kitchen management systems with touch screens, and there's all kinds of stuff, and even show plates. I know in Ontario we took the regulation that says you must communicate menus to the residents, and for some reason people think it's regulated that you need a show plate, and it is not, and it is very wasteful. You can do it in a picture. You can communicate the menus in multiple ways. There is no provision to show the show plate. Some still want to, and that's fine, but it is wasteful. And so with a technology, you definitely can have pictures right on tablets and show residents when they're doing their orders what it could look like without having to do show plates. So our very last poll before we get to questions, which of the risk areas that we discussed today is the most critical at your site? Okay, so again, get your phone out and then we'll go straight to the questions. Just let's take a poll and see what you're struggling with. Oh, wow. Resident dining and choking risk, compliance, cost, food safety, and nutrition is last. Okay, interesting. Give it another second to switch around. Oh, resident dining took second place. Cost and financial. So cost and financial came out on word cloud pretty clear, and it came out here. And there's lots of places that food service technology can mitigate that risk, especially around waste forecasting, the procurement integration with food distributors, and the revenue generating opportunities. There's lots of revenue generating opportunities you can do with software. Okay, so thank you for your participation. I will open it up to the Q&A, and I'll put my camera back on. And I believe Denise will help me out with that.
Okie dokie. All right, so thank you, Julie, for your presentation. We also wanted to send out a huge thank you to our sponsors for their invaluable support. We'll now start with the questions. I actually have no questions showing on my screen at the moment. I'm not sure if you want to take a few minutes to start entering your questions for Julie. I have a question for Julie while we're waiting.
Sure.
I have a challenge with something. I'm not sure if you know the answer off the top of your mind here, but I'll pose the question. I really agree with you that technology has eliminated a lot of time and human error for allergens. We still have a few tricky allergies, let's say, that I don't know if you have a solve for with your system. So for instance, someone who's allergic or has a valid allergy to raw food, but not in the cooked form.
Hmm.
So is there a workaround in the system to
Yes.
address residents such as this?
Yeah, so there are workarounds. There is some manual work that still needs to be done, but it does help if you can drag and drop when, through listing. So what you would do in those cases, and not all food service technology has this feature. So if you need this feature, I mean, it's specific, I guess, to some and not all, but you could create an allergen group and name whatever, you can name it whatever you want, raw food allergen. And then what you would do is based on your menu, you'd have to remove or add recipes that are allowed into the menu and remove anything that would not be allowed. So anything raw would be in that allergen group. And therefore, when you're creating that menu, it wouldn't show up. So, but the manual work is creating that group and putting the recipes that are not allowed in that group. And then you have what's left.
Yeah.
And so some days there might not be anything left. It might be blank. And
Yeah.
then the manual work is then, okay, well, then let's go into our recipe bank and see what we can put in there instead. So there is
Perfect.
some workaround, but it
Yeah.
still takes a little bit of manual work.
Yeah, I'm thinking of one specific. So tomato, for example, raw tomato is an allergy, but cooked tomato is not. And tomato is on our menus quite frequently, right?
Yes.
Especially through pastas, etc.
Right.
So it is challenging. You could end up with a menu that's quite blank,
Right.
removing tomato, for example. So I'm glad that there is a solution for that.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. That's a
Awesome.
common one, actually.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I just wanted to make a comment as well. You were talking about quieting noise. The system helps to quiet the noise. It actually quiets the noise, the physical noise in the
Yes.
dining room.
It's
So,
true.
and one risk that I would like to mention as well is maintaining confidentiality. I have found looking at using tablets in the dining room, we're not hearing ordering by diet order or allergy. So
Right.
so it quiets that noise as well. So
That's
that's
a great
amazing.
point. I need
Yeah.
to add that to my slide, and then you can post. Then the slides can be posted. I definitely need to add that one
There
on.
you go. Perfect.
Yes.
So we just have one question in our Q&A here, and the question is, can you share a variety of different software that are available?
Yeah. So it depends on your food distributor. Most food distributors like GFS has their own. Cisco has their own. Complete Purchasing has a system. Compass Group has a system. Point Click Care also has software, food service software. There's others that are the name is escaping me. It's not coming to mind. If it does, but there is another one that's around Ontario specifically, I'm thinking. And so what I also want to say is Meal Suite is food service software. In Canada, you don't buy direct from Meal Suite, but it powers other software. So you might buy software that's different name altogether, but it is powered by MealSuite. They're not all, but there's lots of different ones, and just there's different like Computrition will power some of these other ones, or Seaboard might power some other ones. MealSuite is a software company that powers food service software. So, but there's lots out there.
So then the follow-up question is, which do you believe is the best to use?
Well, I work for MealSuite, and I absolutely, I actually left, operations at a large chain, Canadian chain that, oversees, I think it was 92 at the time, retirement and long-term care homes, to go to MealSuite, because I did believe in that product, that me personally, and that's what we used. And it's because the possibilities are endless in that end-to-end solution, even if you don't use it all. So I did declare I did work for MealSuite at the beginning. So
So I will not endorse one company or another, but what I will say as a recommendation, to Julie's point, if you're using a particular distributor or if you're with a management company, it is advantageous to use the system that they are familiar with and that they support. So for instance, if you're with Gordon Food Service, it would be advantageous to go with their system because their products, et cetera, would flow directly into that system. If you're with Cisco, going with their system would flow their products, pricing, et cetera, directly in without much of effort for you. Whereas buying it direct from some of these suppliers like Computrition, there would be some extra work for you to just upload pricing files and things like that generally. So that's what I would recommend, is to start with some of these companies that you are currently working with and see which system they are most familiar with.
Yeah, good point, Denise, especially if cost and budget is the top priority, because that's where that procurement function happens, is with the distributor.
So then our last question here is MealSuite aligned with point-click care?
Aligned with point-click care. So when I say MealSuite, many of the food service food service technology companies are powered by MealSuite. In Canada, the exclusive rights to the power by MealSuite is with Cisco and Synergy. Point-click care does have something called nutrition management. At this time, it's not in Canada, but MealSuite does power a product with point-click care, just not available in Canada.
You do have integration, though, as you mentioned throughout your presentation, where some of the information does communicate with the MealSuite system.
Yep. Integrations can happen with Yardi, can happen with integrations are pretty well available in most cases with any EHR.
All right. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. So that wraps up our webinar event. A big thank you to each and every one of you for attending today. Your engagement and curiosity make events like this meaningful. Please keep an eye out for a survey link we'll be sending your way. Your feedback is crucial in helping us improve and tailor our future events for your interests. We genuinely want to hear from you, so please take some time to fill that out. And our webinar series continues, and we have another topic lined up in April. It's a la carte, implementing change to your menu style in long-term care. Registration is still open, so feel free to go to the OSNAC website and register. And in the coming week, we'll be sending out a link to the recording, and stay tuned. Once again, a huge thank you to everyone, our partners, sponsors, presenters, and attendees. Your time and energy are appreciated, and we look forward to having you again real soon. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.